The House of Reps, the Select Subcommittee on the Weaponization of the Federal Government met. The goal was to discuss censorship in social media companies that they do on behalf of the federal government. But it became an attack by Democrats on a fellow Democrat, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And he was a little pissed.
Yeah,
I don't blame him.
He was animated.
I don't blame him. You know who else got pissed? And we'll talk about this later. The IRS informants were disappointed in the Democrats as well. Hey, welcome to the world. This is who these people are. Yep. We've been trying to tell you that. Here was Representative Stacey Plaskett smearing Kennedy in her opening remarks.
Oh, yeah, she's great.
Why are we here? Why? Why would the Republican leadership and the committee majority give a hearing and a platform to the witnesses today, specifically to Mr. Kennedy, a man who has recently claimed that COVID-19 is targeted to attack Caucasians and black people, and before that, in his film Medical Racism, The New Apartheid, that film stated that COVID-19 vaccines do not work for black children because of their, quote, kick-ass kind of immune system. That hyper, superhuman, subhuman kind of language.
Dare you?
He, of course, never said anything.
Pause it. Superhuman, subhuman. Which is it? It can't be both. What are you talking about? That kind of superhuman, subhuman, the language.
What?
He's talking about a superhuman skill. To me, that's... If somebody's calling me superhuman, I'm not taking that as racist.
No.
Are you?
I'm not taking offense to that.
Has anybody ever said that, Superman's not cool? Because he's super?
I mean...
What a stupid-ass thing to say.
He is an illegal alien. So
that is true. Yeah, that is true. I don't think he came to Earth with any documentation. So, yeah, that's bad. That's really bad. Interesting that one of the things that Robert Kennedy alleged was that the Ashkenazi Jews were not subjected to the COVID-19 virus or something?
That wasn't that, and I'm not sure about this because
I've never heard the word Ashkenazi before. Have you?
There's those Jews over there.
Oh.
Yeah.
Over where?
Over there.
Oh, over there.
Yeah, over there.
All right.
You never saw those
I didn't
over
see
there?
them over there. No.
They're just over there. You know those ones.
Yeah, the Ashkenazis.
Wasn't it? But it was just he was just
talking
pointing about a study
who
that
hasn't
was there, right?
and who hasn't been affected as much by the virus as other races.
Right.
I mean, these people go out so far to try to accuse people of exactly what they are.
They do.
And
here's what he alleged that COVID is targeted to attack Caucasians and black people. But that's not taking a shot at black people. She seemed offended by it.
No.
But spare Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese people. Maybe that's why China only had 85,000 infections.
Oh.
Did they? I feel like those numbers have been revised.
Do you? Really?
Yeah.
After heavily implying that COVID could be an ethnic bioweapon, he conceded humbly he didn't know for certain whether the virus was deliberately targeted or not. Okay, so I guess you can't even mention something anymore.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not positive of this, but I've seen reports or I saw a study.
It's almost as if that's what this hearing was about.
Right.
Huh.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That is interesting.
And it's going to become more ironic with the clips that we have because it is a hearing on censorship, and yet they don't really want him to talk much.
No, came time for the Kennedys' opening remarks. Democrats tried to silence him. Deborah Wasserman Schultz, of course, led that attempt.
I'd like to raise a point of order.
Lady can state a point of order.
Point of order pursuant to House Rule 11, Clause 2, which Mr. Kennedy is violative of. I move that we remove into executive session because Mr. Kennedy has repeatedly made despicable anti-Semitic and anti-Asian comments as recently as last week. Rule 11, Clause 2 says, whenever it is asserted by a member of the committee that the evidence or testimony at a hearing may tend to defame, degrade, or incriminate any person, or it is asserted by a witness that the evidence or testimony that the witness would give at a hearing may tend to defame, degrade, or incriminate the witness, and it goes on. Mr. Kennedy, among many other things, has said I know a lot now about bioweapons. We put out hundreds of millions of dollars into ethnically targeted microbes. The Chinese have done the same thing. In fact, COVID-19, there is an argument that it is ethnically targeted. COVID-19 attacks certain races disproportionately. The races that are most immune to COVID-19 are...
A lady making a motion or a speech?
I've made a motion to move into executive session because Mr. Kennedy's testimony...
Mr. Chairman, I
and
move
his
to table the
previous
motion.
statements-
Gentleman from Kentucky has moved to table.
Question is on the motion.
Mr. Chairman, I ask for a roll call vote on the motion to table.
What a
Well, let me ask
joke.
the question. The question is on the motion to table. The gentlelady has asked for a roll call vote. The clerk will have to step back for a second. The clerk will have to come in. We'll call the roll on the motion to table, and then we can get back to testimony.
We are a joke. We're a joke. Can't even have conversations like adults up there, man.
I wish you would have gotten to the racist comment he made.
Yeah.
Because what is it?
I know,
What is
I
the
wanted to hear
racist
it
comment?
too. You
Is
cut her
it
off.
because he said black people have a kick-ass immune system? That's racist? Why? I'd love to have a kick-ass immune system.
Or was it that they were part of the targeted group? I mean, that's still not racist.
That's still not. No, you're not saying they deserved it. If you're saying they deserve it, that's a different thing.
Right.
Or I targeted them, that's a different thing. But just saying that certain groups were targeted over others, that's not
And these
racism.
are the groups. That's not racist.
Bizarre. It's just bizarre.
Yeah, and he addressed all of this yesterday, where he disavowed all these accusations. I mean, he
handled
not
it really
happy.
well.
Yeah.
He really did. I mean, he was very calm
I don't know
while
how-
she was spewing her bull crap.
Yeah, I don't know how he does that.
I don't either. I couldn't have done
It's
it.
it's a trait that I wish I had.
Yeah.
Jim, hold on a second. I have something to say to Deb over here for a second.
Yeah, it would not have been pretty. That would have been thrown out of the room, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Stacey Plaskett was a thorn in Jim Jordan's side all day. Here she was arguing about how much time Kennedy was given to speak.
Point of order. I know that witnesses usually have 5 minutes. I see 10 minutes on the board. Is it going to be 10 minutes?
We'll
for
give him
every
5
witness?
minutes, but we're pretty lax with this. We'll let him go for.
We are?
Yeah.
I've seen you gavel down on quite a number of
We've
witnesses.
given senators and former Democrat members of Congress and all kinds
He's
of folks my
neither.
time.
He's neither.
I'm just saying in past history.
Okay,
in
okay.
committee. But
Let's just watch the time for all the
History's always
witnesses.
And if you want to cut him off and censor him some more, you're welcome to do it.
Oh, that's not my job. That's your job. Why don't you threaten a witness so that they can not want to be a witness?
I mean, it's
She's
just
the worst,
one thing
man.
after another.
My God.
And this Stacey Plaskett, she is what is it? Virgin Islands? Is that right? She's a
I don't know. Is that right?
non-voting member of Congress.
Oh, is she a ranking
wow.
member, too? She's
Yeah.
a ranking member of this committee?
From the Virgin Islands?
I think that's right. Is that right?
I honestly, I
Somebody
don't
want
know
to fact
that.
check that for me?
Wow.
Stacey Plaskett, Congress.
If you don't get a vote,
Yeah, get out.
Virgin Islands at large congressional district.
That's crazy. That's amazing. That's amazing. Representative Thomas Massey had a chance to speak, and he directed his remarks toward Plaskett.
Expired. Gentlelady yields back. The gentleman from North Dakota is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'd like to yield my time to Representative Massey.
I thank the gentleman from North Dakota. Wow. The irony and cognitive dissonance from the other side of the aisle. It's deafening. You could cut it with a knife. They are at the same time denying that censorship is occurring, but suggesting that there's more material that needs to be censored. This is a hearing on censorship that began with an effort, with a formal motion from the other side of the aisle to censor Mr. Kennedy. They do not want him to speak, yet that is the topic of this hearing. They have kept him from speaking. A collusion between the government and private organizations. Mr. Kennedy, in your opening statement, you introduced us to this word malinformation. Can you tell us more about this made-up word, what it means, and some of the things that you've said or tried to say that you've been censored for that's been characterized as malinformation?
Yes, Congressman Massey, and if by your leave, I'd like to just respond
Please.
briefly to some of the, what I would call defamations that have been just applied to me by the ranking member I'm happy to talk to you about my opinions on these issues, what you have stated and tried to associate me with through guilt by association is simply inaccurate. Virtually everything, every statement that you just made about me is inaccurate.
Thank you.
And then he goes through them all.
That's a very kind word.
You are lying.
Use inaccurate.
Yeah, 102 Democrats signed a letter trying to prevent him from speaking yesterday.
My gosh.
And I remember, somebody mentioned on Twitter yesterday, was that remember when the mainstream media was saying that COVID disproportionately affects blacks, right?
Yes.
You remember that?
Yes.
So they were allowed to say this
right
back at the time.
Yep.
But if you say anything similar or anything even in that realm, but you're the one that's saying it and it's not them, then it's malinformation. But when they've got when their goal is more control, then they're gonna use that weapon. I mean, it was. And somebody else said that there was a lot of demonic energy coming from the Democrats yesterday. I think that was the best stated thing because it's been this way all week. It's been that way up there. That's demonic energy from the left. A lot
longer than a week.
Yeah. This week particular, though, it's been a lot of demonic energy coming from Democrats up there.
RFK Jr. had more to say to his fellow Democrats as well.
And the First Amendment was not written for easy speech. It was written for the speech that nobody likes you for. And I was censored not just by the Democratic administration, I was censored by the Trump administration. I was the first person censored by as the chairman pointed out, by the Biden administration 2 days after it came into office. It ordered a truthful, and by the way, they had to invent a new word called malinformation to censor people like me. There was no misinformation on my Instagram account.
Or dis.
Everything I put on that account was cited and sourced to peer-reviewed publications or government databases. Nobody has ever pointed to a single piece of misinformation that I publish. I was removed for something they called malinformation. Malinformation is information that is true, but is inconvenient to the government that they don't want people to hear. Mm-hmm. And that's antithetical to the values of our country. After I announced my presidency, it became more difficult for people to censor me outright. So now I'm subject to this new form of censorship, which is called targeted propaganda, where people apply pejoratives like anti-vax. I've never been anti-vaccine, but everybody in this room probably believes that I have been, because that's the prevailing narrative.
This room too.
Anti-Semitism, racism. These are the most appalling, disgusting pejoratives, and they're applied to me to silence me, because people don't want me to have that conversation about the war, about groceries, about inflation, about the war on the middle class in this country that we need to be having. And by the way, I want to say this while I'm on the record, that in my entire life, and why I'm under oath, in my entire life, I have never uttered a phrase that was either racist or anti-Semitic. I have spent my life fighting my professional career, fighting for Israel, for the protection of Israel. I have a better record on Israel than anybody in this chamber today. I'm the only person who has publicly objected to the $2 billion payout that the Biden administration is now making to Iran, which is a genocidal program.
No kidding.
I'm the only one who's objected to that. I fought more ferociously for Israel than anybody. But I am being censored here through this target, through smears, through misinterpretations of what I've said, through lies, through association, which is a tactic that we all thought we had been discredited and dispensed with after the Army McCarthy hearings in the 1950s. But those same weapons are now being deployed against me to silence me. I know many of the people who wrote this letter. I don't believe there's a single person who signed this letter who believes I'm anti-Semitic. I do not believe that. There is no evidence of that. Now, I want to say something I think that's more important, and it goes directly to what you talked about, ranking member, which is the need, this toxic polarization that is destroying our country today. And how do we deal with that? This kind of division is more dangerous for our country than any time since the American Civil War.
Amen.
And how do we deal with that?
She won't look
How
at
are we going to? Every Democrat on this committee believes that we need to end that polarization. Do you think you can do that by censoring people? I'm telling you, you cannot. That only aggravates and amplifies the problem.
Yes, it does.
We need to start being kind to each other. We need to start being respectful to each other. We need to start restoring the comedy to this chamber and to the rest of America, but it has to start here.
Wow. I agree with all that. Too bad he didn't apply that years ago when he was talking about Glenn and others who disagree with him on climate change, right? He called them traitors. They're treasonous.
Yeah.
So why don't you think back to that, Mr. Kennedy, and apply that in your own life?
Still, though,
he's absolutely right about everything he said. Do you hate scrolling social media for the important news stories? Well, subscribe to our newsletter. Go to theblaze.com/newsletter.